You are listening to the Gritty Podcast, where we talk about all things gritty.
When you're blue collar hunting like we are with these types of tags, sometimes the mountains give up their treasures and sometimes the mountains don't.
Sometimes the mountain kicks your butt.
And that's just the way it is. All right, folks, welcome to the Gritty Podcast. I am your host, Brian Call, and I'm joined by my buddy Brad Hunt. The two of us are on a mountain mule deer hunt. We did one episode a couple days back, and we're doing a little update, follow-up on how the hunt's coming along. I think we're on day 7.
Something like that.
7 or 8.
Yep.
It's day 7 or 8. We split up yesterday because it's Brad and I, and then Ryan Lampers, Kayam, Lloyd, and they're up a basin, chasing some. Well, they're up a basin glassing.
There hasn't been much chasing yet.
There's zero chasing. So it's day 7 or 8. I've lost track. We have 4 days left of the hunt. We have not seen a deer in 2 days. Ryan has seen 1 deer. So, it's not going well.
No, it's not. We've looked over a lot of country, and yeah, no deer yet. So we're still optimistic, I think. I don't know. Might be losing hope. No, I mean, these migration hunts, it's just a matter of time. It's just whether or not that matter of time is in the window that we're here. It could be later than, after we leave, they all show up.
Yeah.
But
we covered a lot of miles yesterday, hiked to a whole new area, and we can pretty much see, I don't know, it's like a 5-10 mile radius. And we're glassing with the spotter, binos, 18 power, and then the spotters, 40 or 60, but we're not seeing anything except elk. That's all we're seeing. So it's strange. We expected to see does and fawns, but we're not even seeing that. So we're in a world of speculation right now, trying to figure out what is going on. First, it's like, oh, maybe it's just this pocket, this basin, it's empty. Oh wait, maybe it's more than that. And now we're kind of the mindset that, I don't know, in some ways it seems like it was a hard winter kill and everything died, but that doesn't even make sense. Wolves, cats, they don't make sense. Nothing makes sense except for perhaps it's been such a mild September, October, going into November, that these deer just haven't moved from the super high country where they summer.
Yep.
The timber. They're certainly not. I mean, they're just not here. They're not here. There's no sign they've been here. There's no tracks.
Like I said, we have glassed. We've set up the spotter, and we'll glass clear in the head of these other basins that we can see. You pick a spot, you scan back and forth grid, and
I've been hunting with Ryan for 5 or 6 years now, and whenever we can't find animals, we just hike further. That's Ryan's solution. Yeah. Hike further, harder, higher. I don't know
if it's going to do much good right now.
And he actually, him and Kayam got to where the snow was knee deep. Went about as far as you can really get, up in some of these craggy peaks where we figure they funnel through. And he said there's not even a track up there. No sign that there have been deer. No sign of deer at all. So, some of these mountain migration hunts, maybe we're 2 weeks off from when they pour out of the mountains.
Yeah.
Or maybe there was a winter kill or something, or some kind of disease, or...
Yeah, you hope not.
You just don't know. But it doesn't seem to be isolated to one canyon or one migration route. Like we've hit 3 or 4 now, and they're all vacant. They're all void of life. So, given the fact that we've seen, I think, 3 deer over the course of 7 or 8 days, and it's not for lack of weather either, because we have gnarly weather, cold, lots of snow. There's snow all around the teepee where we're at right now. There's snow all the way down to the low country.
There's like 18 inches in the tippy tops. You know, lower country's got 3, 4, 5 inches, but it's cold weather.
The only thing
snowy.
is, you know, perhaps the summer was so good to them. A lot of these deer are just fat, healthy. They're not being they're not in need of dropping for nutrition and for warmth. You know, maybe that's all good. Maybe we have, like I said, 4 days or so, 4 or 5. So maybe they pour out of the mountains here and things change real quick. I mean, it can change real fast. It can go from there's nothing to hot. Yeah. But we'll have put in a good maybe 10 or 12 days by the time this hunt's over. Yes. And I will not be surprised if we don't see but 2 or 3 more deer the whole time. Yeah.
No, I agree. That's the thing is it could be, you know, 4 days or 10 days after we leave, season's closed, they could be here all over. Yep. That's just kind of what you're gambling on these migration hunts is
the thing is
you're there at the right time.
You're kind of dreaming for weather like what we have. Yeah. Yeah. Because it just pushes them down.
Could not have drawn up any better the weather we were looking for.
And yet, we're not seeing the deer, which means maybe, perhaps, weather like at the first part of November isn't enough incentive for the deer to drop. Yeah.
Well, and I would say
unless there's something in September and October that drives
and
them.
That's what I was going to add to it is I think partially the early weather in early October plays a big part in it, because if you get those early storms that drop 6 or 8 inches of snow, a lot of times the snow will melt. But they get those early storms and it kind of pushes the deer down, or it gets them on edge, I would say, ready to move down. Right. They may not, but
they start kind of making
they get the
way.
mentality, their hormones maybe start to change a little quicker. Yeah. But we didn't have that this year at all. Like, I think
it was like summer until
the last
week.
Rain was in like the 25th or 28th of September. Yeah. And so I don't know.
I mean, they've had a super easy fall. Yeah. I mean, nothing to challenge them in terms of weather. So that's our theory. We don't really know.
I'm no biologist.
Yeah, I mean, this is the sort of stuff you figure out as you go year over year, as you do different hunts. Be curious as we talk to friends and people with experience and connections. What perhaps is the issue? I mean, if we were to come back to one of these drainages next year and experience the same thing, you start to go, well, maybe there's just a die-off, and now it's going to be a 5-year wait till the hunt gets better again.
I will say this, like we've seen, I don't know, 15, 20 head elk, and through all the elk we've seen, I think we've seen 2 calves, 2 yearlings.
Oh, we've seen at least 40 elk.
Yeah, we've probably seen more, yeah. Exactly. Yeah, you're right. Because we had all those up higher, but very few yearling calves.
This place is tough on elk. But yeah, I mean, we figured we'd just kind of do our best to. It's we often try to capture our adventures and film what we do and kind of share as we go. But this will be if we don't get a deer at all, or we don't really get into action, this will be the third or fourth hunt that I've been on with Ryan where we've gone for 15 days or so, 10 days, and we have come home without filling tags. Yeah. and usually there's just nothing to show for it. There's no film to produce. There's nothing to really share.
Right.
And, I think a lot of people, I try to be really frank about all that. We do our podcast, we talk about that stuff. When I don't make a film out of any of that content, that's 10 days of backcountry activity. But there's nothing to in terms of a hunt to share.
It'd be real boring for you guys to watch.
Well, it's a camping trip.
It's a camping trip, exactly.
And we have strategies for how we maneuver and navigate, and we have plans, and we record it all, but it all ends up in a fruitless, kind of failed venture. And that's just the reality of hunting on public land, in mountains, especially out west, with some tags. Tags prime rut. Those are not tags you can get real easy. A lot of these hunts are September, October, or just a few days of November, the first week, and then things after that are draw or require or landowner or guided type hunts, and it gets harder and harder to. And so, when you're blue collar hunting like we are with these types of tags, sometimes the mountains give up their treasures, and sometimes the mountains don't.
Sometimes the mountain kicks your butt,
and that's just the way it is. And I think a lot of people might try these hunts, and they have an experience like this, or they have the 1 year it's off the hook, and the next year they see nothing.
Yeah. Yep.
And it's a real humbling experience because we're not for lack of ability or experience, and yet there's not really much we've been able to do about the situation except ride it out. And a lot of people don't have the time, part of the reason we're out here, because, it's to test the gear. We have a lot of prototype equipment and things we mess around with.
Yep.
It's to learn the country so that a year or 2 years from now, it might pay off with some dividends. It's to understand what happens early versus late. Lots of factors come into it, but we realize most dudes don't have the time to be able to put in.
Right, exactly.
But the thing is, like I said, this will probably be the fourth time this has happened to us. Once on a bear hunt, twice on bear hunts. So there's two there, and this will be the third deer hunt where we've gone for in excess of 10 days and not taken a deer.
Happens
a lot.
And
every other year.
It's not for lack of effort, that's for
every
sure.
other year or so, yeah.
It's just, you hope that weather and all the factors come together and produce deer. It's just, the deer haven't been produced for us yet, No.
Yeah. But one thing we can do to sort of, as we're sitting here passing the time, is do a little deep dive on some more discussion on the equipment and how the gear is treating us, and what we're finding works and doesn't work, and all that. Hopefully that's useful to all of you that are listening. One of the things that we discussed when we were coming up here was, do we bring an SXL stove?
Yeah.
We're using the Seek Outside titanium stove. Do we bring the SXL, or do we bring the large U-turn?
Yeah.
Right? And we've been using the Seek Outside Cimarron, and or this Peaks prototype teepee that's in development. We've been bouncing back and forth. They're roughly the same size.
Yeah, they're real similar.
And there's basically a 2-man with the stove, pile of wood, and all our gear is in here, and it's enough. It's cozy. There's enough room to fit all of that.
Yep.
We got ample space between us and the heater in the stove, wood stove. Although, we actually had to pitch this thing on a knife edge that was tiny. We had to dig it out with the
pickaxe.
With the pickaxe, which we talked about in the last podcast. If you haven't heard that, you could go back and check it out. But we dug it out. Well, because of the shape of the spot we dug out, we decided to, instead of sleeping, if you're watching this podcast on a video, you'll see that there's a door here, a dome door.
Yep.
And there's a dome door on the other side behind the camera. And so there's 2 exits on the teepee. And what's nice about it is this is actually like a window. So if I unzip this, you know, you can actually glass right out this little hole, and you can see quite a bit, and you're still inside your tent.
Yep.
Especially on this side where the stove isn't here. And that's pretty nice. You can also vent this thing pretty quick if it gets too hot in here. So anyway, the doors, the way that this teepee is designed is, if you got a stove going in the middle where the jack is, I put the jack on the side where my head is going to be, and I put the stove somewhat close so I can reach across.
Yep.
I don't point the stove door towards me, because if I do, I'm in danger of sparks shooting out.
Embers going.
And embers landing on my air pad.
Yep.
And putting a hole in it.
Which has happened to all of us.
Yes. It's the number one cause of our air pads getting holes. But what happened on that knife edge ridge is, rather than us sleeping end to end like this, where we have the door on each side, we slept perpendicular to the door.
Yep.
And so then we each kind of had our own door. It's not really designed for that, but because of the width of the space and how we set up, we kind of had to. But that made the space between our beds and the stove about 4 inches,
real close,
a half a foot closer.
Yeah,
like really close to the stove.
Yep.
And then and as it is too easy to happen, Brad's nice down
my
bag.
Quilt. I tried so hard for 3 days. Like, hey, we stacked big rocks right here, so we had like a barrier. I tried so hard, and the last day we were up where we were, ding dong me, I flipped it, and on the opposite side, way away from the stove, it flipped over and touched it, and so I had like a 3-inch hole by like 1 inch tall
in your quilt.
And it looked like you just started plucking a goose in here.
Feathers everywhere.
So I had to tenacious tape it.
Yeah, I burned my Stone Glacier Chilkoot about 3 years ago on the side of the stove, and in like 1 second, it kind of just fell over, and had to bend it over and overlap it and duct tape it and patch it up. But as long as you catch it before the feathers come out, you can salvage. I mean, if you run a stove and a teepee, you're bound
to do it at some point. Like, you try so hard not to, but it happens,
But but otherwise, that you can see, there's plenty of room in this Peaks teepee now. Got plenty of room over there and over here, and I really like how the doors are dome, and it's nice to just open this end up and just throw piles of wood in, zip it up, and then you come in over here. And, when you have a single door, you kind of have to walk all the way around through your tent to get your pile of wood where you want it. Yep. And then you got to go all the way back out.
Yep. Well, I'd say this too is how we were laying on that knife ridge. Obviously, you had a door, I had a door. It's kind of nice, but the disadvantage to that is you're laying perpendicular to that door. And so when you open it up, no matter how hard you try, I mean, it was raining, it was snowing, no matter how hard you try, you're always getting some bit of your bedding wet. Right. Because the door is right there. Where we're laying this way with the door.
Yeah, with the door right here, when I unzip it and water or snow comes in, it lands on this pile of wood. Yep. And on the other side, it just lands on our entry. Yep. But our bags and our sleeping bags and our gear are to either side of the door.
So it's not recommended to lay parallel with your door.
Perpendicular to the door.
No, parallel would be with the door, right?
I guess it depends on...
And then we're perpendicular right
I guess
now
it depends
to the
on
door.
how you envision it. But you don't want to sleep under the door, basically. Or have your bedding under the door or against the door, the wall, the side with the door.
Yep. Right.
And, I really really been impressed with this teepee. The first prototype I used 3 years ago and was not impressed. And we went back to Bryce, the owner, talked to him and said, yeah, this thing's not gonna cut it.
It's not up to par.
Sorry, it's just not a workable system. A lot of cool ideas, but it just wasn't there. But fast forward over the years, he's been tweaking, and it's got some really unique features that are pretty bomber. Especially the trekking poles in the top that creates a really stiff cross member.
And we kind of talked about that in the last podcast, was how much gear we had hung up there when we were just soaked.
I know. I don't know if we got any video of it, because when you turn the camera on in here, it tends to fog up instantly when there's a stove going and there's moisture. But yeah, needless to say, you can hang piles of gear across those trekking poles in the peak, but also in a heavy wind, the teepee stays more rigid and it just doesn't blow in.
Yep.
It just bucks the wind.
Yep.
So super cool design, and you have trekkers anyway.
Yep.
You don't have to put them in if you don't want, but we pretty much put them in every time because they're so handy.
Yep. And another thing too is with a floorless shelter, a big thing is having a lot of guy outs, because those are anchor points for heavy windstorms and stuff, to keep it tied down. And
that's been one of our things, is we feel like teepees in general, in fact, we ran into some other dudes that came up through our hunt area, and they said, hey, how can you guys set up on these ridges and on these saddles, where the wind just rips? We're like, we set this thing up everywhere. Yeah. I mean, through every storm and windy ridges.
We rode out.
Same thing with the Seek Cimarron. We do the same thing to all our teepees. We put them in some nasty situations. And we expect our teepees to ride them out.
Yep.
And part of that design then requires that it can be staked to the ground. Yep. Which this one does. It's got that slope that kind of kicks the wind off of it. It's got the rigid top, but the guy outs, like you said, especially the side guy outs, there's plenty though.
Plenty.
And with the guy outs, I mean, you just add so much
and then you
stability
add on top
to
of
a
that,
teepee.
rocking out, putting rocks on top of the stakes, heavy rocks, to keep them from pulling out of the ground. I mean, because your number one concern with a floorless shelter is the wind getting underneath and prying and lifting your shelter. Yeah. And that's what lifts the stakes. And so we've got creative. I mean, there's times, you guys have seen it in some of the films, we've put logs, we've put rocks, all the way around, 360.
Well, and the logs, like if we know there's going to be like a horrible windstorm, we will go and stack logs around the base of our teepees. Yep. Because it hits the brunt of the wind.
It keeps the wind coming into the teepee and taking the teepee away. Also, it keeps the wind off of us. Yeah. Because, that wind coming through can be just
if you think about it, if you have a 2-foot stack of woods around the teepee, that wind just hits that wood and kind of blows over it, and the top kind of gets hit a little bit. But, so, it's been a nice teepee. The doors I really like too. Like I said, I like the dome door better than a zipper that goes straight up.
Yeah, in like the middle a center zip.
Because it's kind of I call it the Hobbit door. But if you unzip it, it's just a hole that you can go in and out of. Yep. But there's not pressure on the zipper. Yep. Because the zipper, if it's the actual wall that just unzips, that wall, there's pressure that pulls on as you stake it out. Yep. And you make your tent taut. Then when you go to undo the zipper, all that pressure leaves the teepee. Yep. And then you go to zip it back up again, and you're putting pressure back on the zipper, and the zipper is just expected to hold the weight. Yeah. Whereas this is a sewn in like dome door.
Yep.
Between
your two
seams. And so the zipper isn't under any tremendous load.
No.
And so you can just kind of unzip it and then zip it back down. You know, there are some advantages when you have a center zip that goes all the way up to the peak. And you can unzip it all the way and you can reach to the top real easy.
Yep.
Because you're standing in the entryway.
Yep.
But we found that even with this zipped all the way open, you can pretty much stand right at the peak as well.
Yep.
You're reaching a little more than you would maybe with the other style, but having two doors when it's, because we use it in the springtime for bear season, having the two doors, be able to unzip and then to be able to just let airflow go through both sides. It makes it a real nice shelter because it keeps the sun off you, but also it's cool.
Get some airflow going,
Because being in a tent with only one door and there's no air, you just have to get out. It's too hot.
And Seek does have two. They, they also do.
You can opt to have.
You can opt to have a double door. Adds a little more weight, but it's like it's worth it. I think it's so worth it.
Two doors, especially if one zipper fails or one door fails, you can kind of try to duct tape it. Or somehow sew it.
Keep it closed up.
Keep it temporarily closed and just start using your alternative door.
Yep.
There have been times where we've had zipper failure and we've had to dig a ditch like under the door.
Right.
And Ryan and I had to crawl out and crawl in because the zipper was so damaged from sand and crap in it and pressure that we had to like stitch it and like makeshift patch it and get it together, but there was no way you were going to be able to unzip it or zip it. So we ended up setting it up with a little dip there and then digging it out. And then for 3 days we had to shimmy out that. And there's nothing we could do about it. Like there was no other zipper. There's only one zipper on it.
And you don't want it wide open. I mean,
you can't have it open. No, not. It was like 10 degrees. So it's just
let me ask you this. What is your number one piece of gear on a hunt like this? Cold, wet, snowy. What would your number one piece of gear that you would like recommend or couldn't go without?
The stove.
Yeah, same here. That's exactly what I would say.
The stove and teepee. I mean, honestly, it makes up for a whole host of deficiencies. Let's say your air pad keeps going flat and just constantly flat. Or your sleeping bag, you lose it even. Or it just something happens. Or who knows, right? Like this time of year, the wood stove is king of all. And I'm going to open the window here. This is another advantage to the door. That crow is super interested in us.
Yeah, the stove is, I would say, the exact same thing. Having a shelter that can accommodate a stove, because I mean, if you run out of gas in your cook stove or whatever,
if we want to boil water,
you can cook on here. You can boil water on
we can
here.
Boil right on top of this stove.
You can dry
the wood
out.
Stove. It's so many. It's so versatile. You have so many options. And back to what I said earlier, we debated whether the SXL, the Seek Outside SXL stove, or the medium U-turn would be...
The large U-turn.
The large U-turn would be the appropriate stove for this trip.
Our decision got decided pretty quick because we forgot the flue for the SXL because it has bigger pipe.
Yeah, the flue right here, I left it at home. And so I had the pipe and I had the stove, but I did not have the connector here, the flue piece with the spark arrestor and stuff. And so we're like, well, I guess we'll bring the large. And so now we've been using it the whole trip, put it to use. And I would say that we did get some 20-degree temps, low 20s.
Yeah, I mean, there were a couple nights it's been in the teens, like 15, 17, somewhere in there.
And I did wake up just by nature, like every 3.5 to 4 hours, I would wake up because it got cold. I'd stuff a whole bunch of wood in there shut it, and fall asleep for another 3 or 4 hours. It would last about 4 hours just simmering, and it would take the edge off, and I'd sleep a lot better.
Yep.
But what I've noticed is, for the most part, this has been adequate for keeping this size shelter warm in 20-degree plus weather. And even into the teens, it gets the job done.
Yeah.
I mean, if you sit up, it's hot. It'll dry everything out. Your boots are bone dry.
Yep.
You know, clothes. So it certainly was plenty of stove.
Yeah.
For what we're doing.
I mean, a bigger's always nice, but at the same time, a bigger stove is going to burn more wood too.
The bigger stove too doesn't have the U-turn side. They you know, once you go to the SXL, it's a hard side.
Yeah.
And when you start using a hard side, it adds quite a bit more weight.
Yeah.
And it's just bulky.
Yep. Because
it's so much bulkier. When you try to put it in your pack, it just starts to take up so much more room.
Yeah.
So I think the large U-turn is, I mean, it's nice if you're not weight conscious and, you know, you're not worried about the bulk. It's nice to have the SXL.
Yeah.
You know, you're splitting it with a couple guys. It's got the bigger pipe. It's got the bigger sidewall. I mean, it just burns hotter.
Yeah. Yep.
So Ryan and Kayam have the SXL. But honestly, I mean, we've been hot. We have not been cold at all.
No.
So I don't think the SXL is really necessary. Maybe if you're getting down to 0, 10 degrees, negative temps, then definitely. But for this kind of teens and above, this stove size has been
great.
Handy.
Like I said, that first day, I mean, with all the rain and everything, we were soaked. Hiking in and everything, I'm just so soaked. And so we were able to dry everything out by the next morning and continue on. But
let's talk about another thing that we did this trip that I haven't done in the past, at least with this kind of strategy. In the past, you know, we're on a particular hunt where the temperature ranges from 70 degrees at one point to the teens. And for a few days it can be one way, and a few days it can be another, because you're right in that in between where the fall is turning to winter.
Yeah. Yep.
And so you're going to get a wide range of temps.
Yep.
Now you can opt to bring in well insulated, full grain leather, warm boots for those cold days. But then on those 75-degree days, that can extend for 5 days with lots of hiking. You're wearing a boot that's just over hot. It's miserable.
Feet. Like, you know, me, I'm pretty lucky, pretty fortunate. My feet don't sweat a bunch, but like yourself and other guys, having that warm of a boot, say like the Wild Rock,
sucks.
And you're in 50, 60, 70 degree weather, I mean, your feet are soaked. And then you get more prone to more foot problems, blisters, whatever, soggy feet.
Heat and moisture is the enemy for your boots and your feet.
Yep. And we both have the Laponias. I mean, I think all of us do, actually.
Yep, we all do.
And I think what you're getting at is one piece that made it in our packs.
I decided like with the miles that we cover, and we cover a lot. And because it's hot for a lot of those miles.
Well, and even when it's really cold, like when you're moving, my feet aren't cold.
My feet are freezing.
Really?
Moving, I don't give it.
So like when I'm moving,
Brad's full of crap.
My feet aren't cold.
The Laponia are uninsulated. They breathe a lot. They're like a tennis shoe almost, but with more structure.
Yeah.
They have a neoprene tongue, which allows tons of airflow through for the most part. I mean, they're a great boot for the fall.
Yep.
But once it gets below 30 degrees, once the freezing temps start, cold feet can be a problem.
Yep.
And for me, where I sweat, my feet sweat, like just from the hiking exertion. I just have my feet sweat a lot.
Yeah.
Well, all that dampness, all that moisture getting into the boot, then you add a hot insulated boot to that. My feet will stay warm, but they'll be soaked.
Yeah.
But then they'll get hot. They'll get too hot, and they'll be wet, and then you're fighting blisters, taking your boots off, trying to dry out your socks. And then, So I decided to go with lightweight boot.
Yep.
But bring some strategic, like some foot warmers.
Yep.
Right. So for the days that we're just that way, it's kind of like layering. You know?
I think like the hot hands or whatever, they have the stick-on foot warmer and toe warmers.
Yeah. So we have layering that we do.
Yep.
Like we bring a certain weight pant, and then if you want to, you can add a long john bottom under the pant, or you can add a puffy pant over the pant.
Yeah. And that's
figuring out what weight pant you want to wear.
Yeah. See, I just wear my normal Everly stock pants that I wear year round, but then I always have my puffy pants to put on top of that.
So I hate hot pants.
Yeah, see, and these, they have the side zips, and they're not hot. They're lightweight. They're lightweight.
Yeah. Ryan's wearing a pant that's just thicker.
Yeah.
And I hate it when it's hot.
Same here.
But then you're left freezing when it's cold.
Yep.
So again, it's a layering thing.
Yep.
Like rather than having a certain weight boot or thickness and insulated boot that you're stuck with, or a thicker pant.
Yep.
I went with a thin, lightweight. I have the Kuyu Katana pant with the side vent zippers, and it's a lightweight early season pant. But then I grabbed these Origin kind of merino or wool blend. What do they call them? Long johns.
Long johns, basically, yeah.
And then I know I get hot, so I had Suzanne cut them off at the knees and turn them into shorts before I came. And then I'll wear. I have just a sock, a knee-high sock that I've cut the foot out of, and I slip those things on like a pair of long johns.
Yeah, that's the thing, is everybody's so different. Like, because in the past I've tried, I've put on long johns and then I take them off and I hike and then I put them back on in glass.
I can't do it.
And I'm like,
long johns don't work for me.
They don't work, and my legs really, every time I've been in really cold weather.
This is my sock that I pull up if I want a little extra warmth. And then I can pull this, for those that are watching, I can pull this sock off. Well, I got my pant over the top.
Yeah.
But then when it's hot, I just pull that off, or I just even slide it down.
Yeah.
Just around my ankles.
Well, and that's like me, especially if I'm moving at all, my legs and my feet do not get cold when I'm moving, like at all. And so I'm like, I don't need to even bring a pair of long johns or bottoms. My layering system is my normal pair of pants that I wear from January to December. Like, I never change my pants. They're the same pair. They have a big vent zip, but then I always have my puffy pants. And that seems to suffice for what I need.
I've done that. I've done that for years.
Yep.
And I don't think it's comfortable enough.
Yeah, see, like, my lower body, it's like my hands. I mean,
my lower body's the same, but when it's soaking wet,
yeah,
because we have just ran up a mountain after a mule deer for 3 hours, and then run over here and done all that, your pants are drenched.
Right.
And when your pants are drenched, you can throw your puffy pants on them finally when you stop.
Right.
But if you continue moving and it's windy and they're drenched, you're freezing.
Yeah.
I don't care if you're moving or not moving.
Right.
You're right. As long as you're moving, your legs are fine. But it's when you have to stop and stand still.
Well, I was going
and
to
you
say,
know how many times we have to stop and stand still for an hour or two, and the puffy pants are not an option?
Well, I mean, I still put my puffy pants on because my heat that my body does generate, because I've done it in the past, the heat, eventually it does dry it out.
Yeah, but if you're 80 yards from a mule deer, you're waiting to stand up. You don't pull your puffy pants out and put them on.
Right.
And that's all I'm saying is...
That I just man up and I handle it. And you do freeze.
That's what I'm saying, like, being able to, like, sort of pull the socks up.
Yeah.
And especially with gaiters on, too, it's quite warm. But then I wore these long john, like, shorts for 2 really cold days where we hiked a lot, and it was cold, and I still opened the vent zips when we hiked, but it was actually quite nice to have that little change,
Right.
To have that little bit of extra warmth. But when they got sweaty, they also dried out quick.
Yeah.
Between the 2 layers, But also when we got soaking wet, Brad, guess what? I got to walk around in my dry shorty long johns while you guys all had wet pants on by the bonfire. And I'm like, no bonfire for me. I just stuck my pants up in the rafters and dried them out with the wood stove. And I was in completely dry clothes because I had thrown these on.
Yeah. And that's one thing, like, in the katanas.
I looked like I was walking around in my underwear because I was, but...
The katanas are the same, they're a lightweight pant. They dry fast.
Yeah.
And that's kind of why I'm like... I just hate the long john. I mean, yes, it is nice for that. You have it.
Oh, I hate them. I refuse to wear them.
But I hate taking my pants off and putting them on.
On the gear dump I did, I had said, well, I think I might bring the warmer
Timberlands, yeah.
Timberline pants. And at the last minute, I'm like, they're too heavy. I'm not bringing that. But I
added more snacks instead of a pair of pants.
What I did was I grabbed these little Origin long johns and then cannibalized them or cut them off at the knees. And you know what? I'm telling you, man, this little bit has been, it has added a lot of comfort to this trip, and it weighs nothing.
Yeah.
And then we have been using them to dry anything that's wet because it's like a little towel.
Yeah.
And then I throw it in the rafters and the heat from the stove dries them out, and I've been able to dry cameras. And
I've been using, I brought in a lightweight Mountain Ops merino top and then the little heavier one.
Yeah.
So I've been doing the same thing with that.
Kind of the same thing, right? So that's what I was saying is the more I do these trips, I like to have a backup option for bottoms and a backup option for the top. And so I also have this Origin top right here, which I usually bring like a Sitka Apex hoodie. That's a merino blend. But instead I brought the Origin hoodie on this trip. And again, that's it. This is my secondary clothing right here.
Yeah, seeing.
And I can see myself on if we kill bucks and it is pouring rain or snow and sleeting, but we got to hike 7 miles.
Yeah.
I'm going to put these 2 little pieces of underwear on, and I'm going to throw my rain gear on, and that's it.
Yeah.
And I'm going to have just the right blend.
Well, I'll probably have nothing on except for my rain pants.
I've done that too.
I've done that multiple times.
It's not comfortable though.
No.
Like a little layer of merino helps with that. But yeah, I don't know. But back to the boots. What I decided to do was bring the lighter boot. Again, layering up, layering down. You can kind of, with the system I brought this time, I can add a little bit of layer if I want, or take a layer away. I can add 3 layers if I want, or run with 2 layers or 1 layer. And you pretty much are hitting, you have all the layers you need for all the temperature ranges that you're in.
Yep.
And that was a strategy. So the boot strategy was the same. You needed a lightweight, uninsulated boot.
Yep.
But you want to layer up your boot for when it gets cold. You want it to be warmer.
Yep.
Well, how do you do that with a boot? Well, we did this with our stockisons on our, we wear stockisons a lot, and late season elk hunting, we were like, our feet were freezing.
Yeah. Because
we're just wearing a leather moccasin. So Brad's holding up, for those that are watching on the camera, he's holding up some Hot Hands.
It's an insole foot warmer.
And so what we ended up doing was, these are the toe warmers right here. And I have them in a plastic Ziploc. So it's interesting. So I brought 8 of these, figuring that that's about how many I would need.
Yep.
They last about a full day, roughly. And what I do with these, with the insoles or with the toe warmers, either one, I don't put them on the bottom of my feet. I put them on the top. The toe warmers I put on the top of my big toe. The insole ones, I do the same thing. I put them on the top of my big toe on the outside of my sock right here, and stick them on right here on the top. Top is 1,000 times more effective than the bottom of your foot. And when you put them on the top, and you go on a hike, you're not standing or stepping on these things. they're tucked in the top of your boot.
Yeah.
But this little toe warmer, every morning when we're stepping outside in these uninsulated boots, you throw a little toe warmer in the top, or the full length footbed in the top of your foot there. You can go all day almost with warm feet.
Yeah.
Even though you're running this uninsulated boot.
Yep. Yeah, exactly.
And there really is no replacement. I say this a lot. There's really no replacement for external heat sources.
Yeah. Well, I never, ever pack extra clothes, as far as pants or whatever. I have an extra shirt on this trip because I figured when we were hiking a lot and it was hot, I had the really lightweight, and then when it gets cold, I have the one with the hood on. Mm-hmm. But I did bring an extra pair of socks, and the only reason I brought another pair of socks is because thinking that when I put those insole warmers on my feet, I can put my other sock to hold it in place. Because obviously you don't want them on your bare skin.
Yeah.
But I have 2 really lightweight pairs of socks, and that's kind of how I layered this trip. Mm-hmm. And obviously when we don't have them on and you're sitting glassing, your feet get cold. I mean, it's cold outside.
Oh man. So putting the foot warmers on the top of my foot and slipping them in my Laponias, even in the teens, my feet have been warm.
Yep.
And cold feet is the difference between glassing and sticking it out and spending hours and hours.
Putting your foot in a cold, wet, frozen boot is miserable because you're starting out right off the bat. And so with the boot dryer that we use, I mean, we start the stove in the morning, we throw our boots up.
That's
warm.
The other thing. I have them, I think they're right here. For those that are watching, these are the Graxaw boot dryers that our friend Austin makes. Mm-hmm. He makes the game bags we use as well. And these little boot dryers right here, there's just 2 little fans. Yep. And in the Peaks Teepee, which I really like, it's got this mesh net platform up there. Yep. But you also have the trekking poles. So when the net stretches down, it just lands on the poles. Yep. And those poles, so we put 2 pairs of boots, we just stack them on the sides, on each side of that mesh net. And then I just throw this in there in the morning and throw the little battery, dark energy battery pack on there to power this. Yep. And those boots get, I sweated it out a lot the other day when we climbed this nasty couple thousand feet straight up vertical with heavy packs to get up here. And we climbed that, and my boots were sweaty and wet when we got here. Well, got the stove up, put those in the mesh net, threw on the Graxaw. Within a few minutes, they were bone dry. And then when I put them on this morning, they were hot. Yeah. My boots were super warm. And then I took these are the toe warmer packets. And you peel off the sticker and you stick it to the front, to your big toe and the top of your foot. Slip it in your boot and good to go. Throw on the puffy pants, puffy jacket, whatever you need for glassing. And we were out at daylight in the dark, even getting an early start, and totally comfortable. Then it warmed up 2 or 3 hours later. I was like, we came back in because we got socked in, couldn't see anything, and just took these toe warmers and I took them out of my boots, didn't need them anymore, and you throw them into a Ziploc and you seal them up, and the oxygen stops hitting it, and it stops the heat, and it kind of preserves them. So tomorrow I can pull these things out, and they'll last for a number of hours.
That's what I did. I wore mine for a little bit yesterday morning, but then we hiked all day, so I put them in a Ziploc and then pulled them out today, and I got almost 6 or 7 hours of use out of them, while we're glassing and stuff. And
so you can really stretch out their use if you can seal them in a bag. Yep. These are in the full spectrum CBD gummy bag. These are a stout little Ziploc. Yeah. They're kind of perfect for these toe warmers. These are Ryan and Hillary's Stealthy Nutrition full spectrum CBD gummies, 25 milligram CBD per gummy. So apparently they're working on these sample packs, or these, what do they call them? Travel packs?
Yeah, like a trail pack.
Trail pack. Mm-hmm. That's what he's calling them, trail packs, because Ryan's always bringing a jar of them, and he's like that, yeah. Mm-hmm. And that's not real good for packing. So he's getting these made so that you need like 4 or 5 packets when you go on your trip.
Yep.
And they're good to go. They're already done and ready to go. And you can just have a couple of these a day, 3 or 4. I think Ryan takes 4 a day on heavy active day and 2 on other days. It looks like there's 10 in each package. So anyway, but I just use this Ziploc package to put my toe warmers in there. And tomorrow I'll crack them open and they should fire right up and last another 6 hours or so.
Yep.
Which is then just kind of, a lot of times we're like, I don't want to open it because if I open it, then I've used it.
Yeah.
And then, I might need it this morning. I might be glassing all day, but then I might only need them for like 2 hours. Then I'm going to go on a long hike.
Yep.
And, you can sort of try to manage their burnout by putting them in these baggies, Ziploc. Yep. So anyway, I think that's a good, hopefully, our little discussion is useful to all you guys diving into gear, getting a little nerdy here. But the other thing that we need to talk about, which we said we would, are our solar panels, which are outside in the snow right now. We've been running these dark energy chargers for quite a while. The Code Gritty should work on them, but it's not right now. So we got to give Dark Energy a shout and say, hey, what's up? But these things have been good to us, been using them for a long time. But we've used Anchor, and Ryan has a couple other chargers too. But these have been pretty bulletproof, and weight to performance ratio has been solid.
And they seem to handle the really, really cold weather well. Where others that I've used, that's like a huge, when it's hot, they probably all kind of work the same. Yeah. But you get into that really, really cold. The teens.
And it sucks your battery dry.
And it will suck them dry. And I've had really good luck with the dark energies and lasting.
But the solar panel will keep this battery pretty well charged. I mean, we've had crappy.
We're on day 7 or 8, and we've been nonstop watching movies. And this one has 3 bars right now, and my other one's out there charging. And it's like we've never even came close to running out of power. And the solar panel is.
I mean, it's almost like shameful.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah, I mean, the fact that things have, even the amount of time we've spent talking to our wives on our inReach devices and just watching movies all day when we're socked in. I mean, it has been pretty crazy.
Yeah.
Where
in the past I've been like, I'll send a couple text messages out.
You shut it off.
And it gets shut off.
You're reluctant to use your maps. You're reluctant to use a lot of things because of power problems. One thing we should mention is the Anchor solar panel, 3-panel that we've been using.
We did on the last one.
The 513 count. We mentioned it a little bit, but it's discontinued, I guess. And so we've been using, Ryan and Kyan brought the Rhino.
It's called the Rhino Tough.
Rhino Tough.
Yep.
It looks like it's the exact.
Yeah. I mean, they're identical.
Replica almost.
Like
they're very similar.
Yes.
Like they just put a different logo on it. It is a little bit different, but almost the same.
Yeah. It's 2 to 3 ounces heavier. But like Kyan he has a meter that he can kind of like gauge how much input's coming into through the panels.
They're very similar. He said the Anchor is a little bit better on a couple of markers, but only you could probably not even tell unless you actually put them.
Yep.
But it doesn't matter because they don't make that other one.
So it's available.
Yeah.
Rhino Tough. I think it's RYNO.
Yeah.
Like TUFF, I think.
Yeah.
But
so I don't know. We'll get into some more discussion, I guess. There's a few other things that I found helpful, but man, I've been so kind of pleased with the way things have, how comfortable we have been in these nasty conditions.
Yeah. Yep.
It really does make it so you can hold out for that last day of the hunt. And,
I promise you, if we didn't have like the stove and stuff, and in the weather conditions we were in, even if we had 10 days planned, I guarantee you day 3, 4 might last till day 5.
Well, with how wet we were on day 1.
Yeah.
I mean, we were so wet. That would have been tough.
Yeah. Even starting a fire outside.
I don't know if our boots would be dry even yet.
Because that's the problem you run into. You start a fire outside, you try and dry your boots out.
No, you need like a convection oven type place.
Yes.
That's why the peak of the teepee is ideal, because that heat is concentrated in one spot. You put stuff next to a fire and it's hot to the point of burning the object.
And it still doesn't really get down
inside the boot very well. But when you have the hot tent filled up with heat, boots up high.
I mean, it's literally like a dryer.
Yeah.
Like your drying machine.
I mean, it's like 100 and something degrees up there
it's warm.
with the fan blowing inside the boot. It's hot tents and stoves are, I don't know, it's hard to imagine life without it nowadays. You know, a lot of people ask me about this Origin stuff, by the way, on that gear dump that I did. I really didn't have much to say about it because I haven't used it. But I have this Origin, what do they call this? Like the shadow wool or something, I don't know. But I got this wool top, and I've been talking to you about it here and there, day after day, but I am freaking in love with this wool top. I mean, I legit really, really like it. It breathes well. It seems to have a wide temperature range of comfort. So when I'm climbing the hill and it's super hot and I should be sweating, I should want to take the layer off, I'm like, I don't need to.
Yeah.
And then when it's cold and I'm like, I should add another layer, I'm like, but I'm still warm.
Yeah.
So it has this wide comfort rating. And I think that's just the nature of wool in general.
Well, and that's wool. I mean, that's why
we like those merino tops.
Yeah, and that's why a lot of people, they really like wool, because when it gets wet, it's still warm.
Yep.
It's just, it kind of comes down to a weight factor, you know? I mean,
but the comfort of it, and we'll step outside and my puffy will get wet and it goes flat pretty quick.
Right.
The outer layer isn't really built, but if I throw this wool over the top, it's like the wool just takes on the water, no problem.
Yeah.
And then I can't even tell it got water on it. And yet I don't have to wear rain gear outside. Then when I come in to the teepee, the water just comes out of it. Like, it's just nice. It is a nice weight. I like the hood. I like the hood. I like the cut of it. I like the zipper. I don't like pulling stuff over my head.
Yeah.
I like putting it on like a jacket and zipping it up. And then I like the fact I can unzip it and hang it open, let some cool air in and zip it back up, vent it better. No, I'm like super, super pleased. And knowing that it's made in the USA, that's great too. I just want to support that kind of activity, that kind of endeavor.
Yeah.
So I can see myself wearing this for a lot of different things. I'd like them to make it in a solid someday. But all in all, I'm like, it's been a long time. Ryan and I had a little debate over the worthiness of the jacket for a hunt like this.
Yep.
And he has a similar, like, pullover merino wool. And, he's just being contrary to argue with me.
Because his is USA made too, out of Montana.
Yeah, so he's talking about that, and I'm like, you found it under a bridge in San Francisco. Don't lie to me. But his is a little bit lighter, and being merino, it's going to be. But there's something about the coarser wool that doesn't absorb moisture the same way.
Yeah.
Coarser wool is just warmer when wet than merino wool is.
Right.
Merino wool has that comfort, but it can also feel a lot like a cotton t-shirt.
Yeah.
It does not withstand the moisture at the same level and keep its R value intact. So, but still, this is a little bit heavier, but not by much.
Yeah.
And the performance seems to be pretty stellar. So I don't know, dude. I'm like enjoying it. I can see myself. It's just so durable.
Yeah.
Like I'm laying on the dirt in it, and I'm thrashing it and using it, and it's just like I'm just sitting here going, we've gotten away from wool.
Yeah.
Even though you and I, like all of us, have gone back to merino tops, like merino tops and merino thermals, and if we wear anything, it's wool.
Yep.
But it does seem like there's a lot more use for wool than what has been.
Yeah.
We've
gotten soft because we want the lightweight down.
Well, the synthetic pants, they just dry out in seconds.
I look back as a kid and I'm like, we didn't have any of that stuff. We were wearing wool jackets, hunting in snowy weather, No,
this just seems like that right blend to add to what I already have.
Yeah.
Because because of what it provides. But I'd be curious what other people think, as they get the jacket and use it. I can see myself living in it during archery season and really enjoying it.
Yeah.
So anyway, well, Brad, I can feel that temperature dropping.
It is dropping.
I think we can get about 30 or 40 minutes of glassing in before the sun goes down.
Yep.
So we're going to step away from the camera and the podcast and do a little more hunting here.
Mm-hmm.
Sounds like the rain or the snow stopped. Well, thanks for tuning in. Check out the next one and we'll give you an update on some more gear and also let you know if anything has changed. But
fingers crossed.
Fingers are crossed.
Hopefully.
Thanks for tuning in. Check out Stealthy Nutrition. Our buddy Lampers got these sexy glassing pads.
Mm-hmm.
Plug those. We've got, we also have CBD gummies. You got the sleep gummies.
The sleep gummies, yep.
They've got lots of cool stuff over there. So just go to Stealthy Nutrition. Use the code GRIDDY over there. If you don't have a rifle cover, get one.
Mm-hmm.
It's a nice cover. And then check out Peaks Equipment. The trekking poles, our Peaks headlamp, which is legit. I got this here. I've talked about it lots. Use the code GRIDDY, get the headlamp. I think they're always running out of stock.
My buddy texts me and he's like, hey, they're in stock. Is it worth it? And I'm like, dude, we've used, and I'm not just saying this, we've used a lot of headlamps. And I, back in the day, had a favorite.
Mm-hmm.
But that has now since been replaced with the Peaks headlamp.
It just
works for what we do at locks. It's rechargeable.
I haven't had to charge this one the whole time I've been here.
I just barely charged mine 2 nights ago, and I hadn't charged it in I don't know how long.
It's unbelievable.
I'm like, if we kill something, we have a night hike, I better charge my headlamp.
I mean, and the beam is bright. You got the red and the white. So check that out. Peaks also has spoons.
The spoons.
I got a Peaks titanium spoon.
Mm-hmm.
Little thing here, but that looks like the teepee could be out this fall maybe, or the winter time. And I'm impressed with it too. There's we always are like, we're not going to endorse or talk about something until we've used it and until we can say with confidence,
it's proven itself that it's going to work.
It's a good value. You're going to want it. And I think that's where we're at here. So kind of excited about that. But check all that stuff out. Check out Mountain Ops, by the way. I've had some Hot Ignite as well as Citrus Bliss Pink Lemonade every day. I'm sort of addicted to it. I live off of Ignite.
It's caffeine.
It's my caffeine.
People.
It's my caffeine source. So check that out. I love that stuff. Mountain Ops Ignite. Use the code GRIDDY over there. And Brad, let's go do some hunting.
Yep.
Stay gritty, folks.